Good afternoon, and this is Code and Hash channel. We welcome you back to the Code and Hash channel. And today it is the topic is we are going to see about built-in exceptions in Java. So in the case of exceptions, Java built-in exceptions, you have Java lang packages. Okay, you have just select the highlighter, and you have certain packages in Java. Among those packages, java.lang package is the most common package which provide all the exception classes available, and lang refer to language. Okay, and here it shows this lang package contains all the classes, that is exception class, that too the runtime exception classes. So to create a built-in exception, there are two sets of built-in exceptions available. Okay, seeing to the built-in exception, there are two sets of built-in exceptions available. One is unchecked exceptions and another one is checked exceptions. So what is unchecked exceptions means? If an exception is raised and if the compiler does not check if a method handles or throws that exception, then it is called as unchecked exception. That is, if during the compile time, if it is not checked by the compiler and if it is found that it cannot be thrown by any exception, then it comes under your unchecked exception. And the other case is the checked exception. Checked exception is nothing but it is included in the method through class, and if the method generates but does not handle them. Okay, that is, you have handled that method, that is, you have included the throws method, throws class, that is, you might have given as throws IO exception, or you might have given as throw arithmetic exception. But if it is not handled, then that kind of exception comes under your checked exception. So totally you have runtime exception class which is available in java.lang package. That runtime exception class contains all the built-in classes available, that is built-in exception classes available. So these built-in exception classes are of two sets, that is are two types, that is unchecked exception and checked exception. Unchecked exception is the compiler does not handle this exception as well as does not mention or does not throw the exceptions erased. It comes under unchecked exception. But in the case of checked exception, it is not handled but it is being mentioned. It comes under checked exceptions. Now we can see about the different types of checked and unchecked exceptions available. So when seeing to the unchecked exceptions, you have unchecked built-in exceptions, that is arithmetic exception, array index out of bounds exception, array store exception, and illegal state, and these are some of the unchecked exceptions available. Okay, these are some of the unchecked exceptions available in Java. And when seeing to the checked built-in exceptions, you have these exceptions, that is no such method exception or no such field exception. This is separate exception. Interrupted exception, instantiation exception, illegal access exception, clone not supported exception, and class not found exception. And these exceptions comes under checked built-in exceptions. Okay, now we have seen what are all the built-in exceptions available, and we are going to see now how to create our own exception. Okay, our own exception, that is, if I want to build my own exception for my project and it is not already available, then I can create my own exception with my case study what I am going to take it into account. So how to create my own exception? So to create our own exception class, first thing is we have to handle some generic errors. Okay, creating own exception classes. So how to create means built-in exception classes handle some generic errors. So how we are going to define, how we are going to create your own exception class? So to create your own exception class, definitely you have to extend the exception class or inherit the exception class. Exception class is the parent class of all the exceptions. Okay. Now, so what I am going to do is class my exception extends exception. Class my exception extends exception. Now my exception is nothing but the class what I have created, and exception is the built-in class. Now it means that this class what I have created, it comes with the help of the exception class. It is the subclass of the exception class. So my exception need not implement anything, but it has allowed the objects of the exception class. Now, so how to create our own exception? This is a simple program what I have done. That is class my exception extends exception. Exception, this exception is the built-in class. Okay, this exception is the built-in class, and this my exception is the my own user defined exception. Okay, this is built-in class and this is user defined exception class. And here inside this exception class, I am going to create a variable that is private int detail. This is the variable what I have created. And my exception, again this is a constructor. My exception is a constructor with an one argument constructor, and I have passed one argument, that is a. Now I am assigning this value which is passed to my constructor with the variable which I have declared inside this, and calling a method string to string of method. This is to string of method is the method of string class. Method of string class, and its return type is string. Okay, so return type is string. So return my exception of plus detail I have given. Okay, now this is not the full program. I have created the main program here. Okay, main program here, that is static exception demo, where this void compute is int a throws my exception. Okay, and a greater than 10, then throw new my exception of a. Here I have given my exception of a. This a will be passed over here, and the a will be accepted to the detail. When you have a greater than 10, if the value what you pass is greater than 10, then automatically it throws the exception. This is what the exception. Okay, so static void compute int a throws my exception. My exception is the exception what I have created here, and my exception when compute int a I am giving, and what happened inside my exception, when I call this my exception, automatically this calls the constructor. This calls the constructor in return, and what happens, the data will be sent, a will be passed over there. Now if a greater than 10, a value what I pass is greater than 10, automatically throw new my exception of a. Now at this particular time, this 10 a value will be passed over here, and it will be transferred over here, and the exception rise. Okay, it print out that my exception, or else it just prints that it is normal exit. Okay, then we are going to see about the exception of another method. Okay, I have given, and here just I have created the demo, and now we haven't created any main function. That main function here, public static void main string args of try. Inside try catch I am giving the exception compute of 1. When the value is 1, a is less than 10, 1 is less than 10, so it will not send any message. But the same time compute of 20, if you give 20 greater than 10, automatically it throw the my new exception of it calls. So automatically the exception will be given. Okay, this is how you have given with the exceptions, that is built-in exceptions, and we have seen an example for user defined exception, creating my own exception. In the last video we have seen creating user defined exception with an example of age exception. If the age is less than 18, then it creates the exception, or if it is greater than 18, it does display the thing. That example we have seen in the last video. Thank you.